CBS Sports had some really nice things to say about Rich Rodriguez coming back to West Virginia. I don't have video clips to play, but I do have some quotes here and just kind of talk about. Number one, this also includes 24/7 Sports. CBS Sports owns 24/7 Sports, so they're also included in this. But when you look at this, first I start with Brandon Marcello. Brandon Marcello on the CBS Sports YouTube channel, they were asking him his opinion and how he would grade Rich Rod coming back to West Virginia. He said he gave it an A-, and the reasons he gave, he feels like that Rich Rod has proven himself at multiple levels, at both the FCS level, the FBS level, and the P4 level, because he's coached at West Virginia before. He's coached at Arizona where he had some success. He feels like he checked all those boxes. He also feels like, the fan base and the program is recharged having Rich Rod back home because of the nostalgia, because of the success he had there in the past, and because he's a good football coach. Rich Rodriguez is a good football coach. He is one of the inventors of the zone read offense. He is an absolute offensive guru. College football, all of football today is different because of Rich Rodriguez, right? He's recharged the program, and as a fan, I can tell you, it's true. We are so stoked and excited for this upcoming football season. I would not be surprised if we see record season ticket sales this year in Morgantown. The quote that I wrote down that I thought I liked the best is he says Rich Rod is the, quote, perfect fit for West Virginia football. I think he proved that the first time he was in Morgantown. I think he'll prove it again. I do think he's the right fit for the job. The one question that I guess the reason he didn't give him an A or an A+, but he gave him an A- is because he did question, can he do this at the Power 4 level in the NIL era? In the transfer portal era. He did have to deal with NIL and the transfer portal a little bit at Jacksonville State, but not on the same level, especially the NIL piece. Jacksonville State, they didn't have as much NIL money to give out, so it wasn't as big of an issue there. At West Virginia, it's a different story. Guys are going to want that bag. And how does he manage it? Did he bring on the right staff to manage it? That's all going to, if he didn't, we'll all find out soon enough, because they won't have success. But I think he will have success. I'm very confident he will. At least I think I think year one will be a learning curve, and I think year two is really when they'll take off and start having really good years. But it's a fair question to ask by Brandon Marcello. Can he do it at the Power 4 level in this era of college football? We will find out soon enough. The second one I want to talk about is someone by the name of Smoke Dixon. Smoke Dixon is an analyst over at 24/7 Sports, again, which is owned by CBS. He says he thinks Rich Rod is building his culture at West Virginia, that he's bringing that back. He's bringing that energy and that culture back to West Virginia football that he had there in the mid-2000s. And he said he was, quote, an energy and cultural fit, end quote. So again, he uses the word fit. He thinks Rich Rod is a fit. And guys, I think fit matters at West Virginia maybe more than a lot of other schools, if not most other schools. It's so different there. The recruiting is different. The culture is different. The geography's different. Everything's different at West Virginia. The demographics are different. Everything's different. And not just any coach can win there. And I think Rich Rod is one who can, because he embodies the Mountaineer mentality, the blue-collar mentality, the West Virginia culture, the coal mine culture, what I like to call it. I do think he's a fit, and there's two national analysts who have said they think Rich Rod's a good fit at West Virginia. Smoke Dixon went on to say, when they asked him about how long do you think it will take Rich Rod to get West Virginia into the college football playoff, he said 2 years. 2 years. He thinks Rich Rod will have West Virginia in the college football playoff in 2 years. That's pretty awesome to think about. Here's what he said, and I'll get to the super chat in just a second. He says, I'll give Rich 2 years. He's going to find his right guy. And again, in the Big 12 might get 2 teams in, talking about the automatic qualifiers that are being proposed. And when you get Rich Rod and that explosive offense that can score a bunch of points, you just need to do enough on defense. And they are doing well in recruiting. So Smoke Dixon thinks West Virginia can be in the college football playoff in 2 years under Rich Rodriguez, and he actually predicted that they will win 8 games in 2025, which is pretty darn good for year one, having to do an entire roster turnover. Thank you for the super chat, Outlaw College Football. He says, Rich Rod has that moxie. Alabama and Michigan wanted to hire him for a reason. Lloyd Carr undermined him at Michigan. Great point, Outlaw. Michigan, I had a Michigan fan today chime in on one of my videos. Very respectful. Said he didn't feel like Michigan gave Rich Rod a fair shake. They didn't give him enough time. And Rich Rod, there were a lot of donors and boosters and people at Michigan that never wanted Rich Rod in the first place because he wasn't a, quote, Michigan man. They weren't pulling the rope in the same direction. He's even made comments that, the AD that hired him got fired while he was there. He feels like if that AD hadn't got fired, they would have kept him on and he would have had success that fourth year when Brady Hoke took him to a Sugar Bowl. It was with mostly Rich Rod recruits. So Rich Rod feels like he could have had the same success with that team and maybe kept that thing rolling after that had they not fired the AD, and he could have been able to stay on. So great comment, Outlaw. I appreciate it and totally agree with you. And he had some success at Arizona. Arizona was not a great program. Heck, they're still not a great program. What have they had? 3 10-win seasons in their history, and I think he had one of them. So it's not like he walked into a Taj Mahal of college football programs. No offense to Arizona, but I'm just basing it on history here. He did pretty darn good at Arizona. And Alabama wanted him the year before he went to Michigan, and he turned it down. So Outlaw's exactly right. And Outlaw's an Alabama fan, so he can speak to that. He knows that. And again, thank you for the super chat. If you want to support the show, if you want to make sure your comment gets read, you can highlight it by dropping a super chat. WVU Earl's in the house, who's a channel VIP member here. He says, you are so right, Outlaw. The next analyst I want to talk about is actually a writer, not really an analyst, but it's Dennis Dodd, who writes over at CBS Sports. Dennis had the following quote. He actually gave it an A+ hire. He said it was an A+ hire in an article he did a few weeks back. He says, this is his quote now, and I'll share the link to this article and all these clips in my description box. But he says, you can go home again. One of the grandfathers of the zone read spread returns to his alma mater and a place that he coached from 2001 to 2007. Rodriguez will bring a sense of nostalgia and possibility to a program that is dying for a sniff of the old days. Rodriguez, who's 61, is literally the embodiment of those old days. So Dennis Dodd, Smoke Dixon, and Brandon Marcello all think this is a good hire. I've heard Josh Pate over on his show, who also is part of the CBS Sports and 24/7 family. I've heard him talk about how good of a move this was for West Virginia to bring Rich Rod home. So apparently everybody over at CBS and 24/7 thinks this was a home run move by Ren Baker and the Mountaineers about in their program to bring Rich Rod home.